Hey guys, I'm gonna continue reading The Lemonade War. The last time we were together, Evan was trying to solve the problem 53 divided by 3. So he drew a lot of dollar signs. And I'm going to continue from there. There were 17 dollar signs in each row, and then 2 extra dollar signs left over. Evan drew rings around those 2 extras. 17 dollar signs and 2 left over. Evan stared at the picture for a long time. He wrote Friday next to the first row, Saturday next to the second row, and Sunday next to the third row. Evan looked at the picture. It started to make sense. He needed to make $17 on Friday, 17 on Saturday, and 17 on Sunday. And somewhere over the 3 days, he needed to make 2 extra bucks in order to earn $53 by Sunday evening. Evan felt his heart jump in his chest. He had done it. He had figured out 53 divided by 3. That was a 4th grade problem. That was 4th grade math. He hadn't even started 4th grade, and no one had helped him. Not Mom, not Grandma, not Jessie. He had done it all by himself. It was like shooting and winning the basket in double overtime. He hadn't felt this good since the Lemonade War began. But $17 a day? How was he going to do that? Yesterday, he made $45, but that's because he had help and free supplies from his friends. They weren't going to want to run a lemonade stand every day, especially on the last days of summer vacation. He needed a plan, something that would guarantee good sales. The weather was holding out, that was for sure. It was going to hit 95 degrees today, a real scorcher. People would be thirsty, all right. Evan closed his eyes and imagined a crowd of thirsty people, all waving dollar bills at him. Now, where was he going to find a lot of thirsty people with money to spend? An idea popped into Evan's head. Yep, it was perfect. He just needed to find something with wheels to get him there. It took Evan half an hour to drag his loaded wagon to the town center, a distance he usually traveled in less than 5 minutes by bike. But once he was there, he knew it was worth it. It was lunchtime, and the shaded benches on the town green were filled with people sprawling in the heat. Workers from the nearby stores on their half-hour lunch breaks, moms with their kids, old people who didn't want to be cooped up in their houses all day. High school kids on skateboards slooshed by. Preschoolers climbed the life-size sculpture of a circle of children playing Ring Around the Rosie. Dogs lay under trees, their tongues hanging out. Pant, pant, pant. Evan surveyed the scene and picked his spot, right in the corner of the green where all the paths met. Anyone walking the green would have to cross his path and his stand. Who could resist lemonade on a day as hot as this? But first he wheeled his wagon off to the side, parking it halfway under a huge rhododendron. Then he crossed the street and walked into the Big Dipper. The frozen air felt good on his skin. It was like getting dunked in a vat of just melted ice cream, and the smell, the mix of vanilla, chocolate, coconuts, caramel, and bubble gum. He looked at the tubs of ice cream, all in a row, carefully protected by a pane of glass. The money in his pocket tingled. He had plenty left over after buying 5 cans of frozen lemonade mix with his earnings from yesterday. What would it hurt to buy just 1 can, or a milkshake, or maybe both? Can I help you? Asked the woman behind the counter. Yeah, said Evan. He stuck his hand in his pocket and felt all the money. Bills and coins ruffled between his fingers. Money was meant to be spent. Why not spend just a little? Evan could imagine how good the ice cream would feel sliding down his hot throat, creamy and sweet, like cold, golden deliciousness. He let his mind float as he gazed at the swirly buckets of ice cream. The sounds of laughter brought him back to earth in a hurry. He looked around. It was just some girls he didn't know at the water fountain. But it sounded like Megan Moriarty. Can you please tell me how much a glass of lemonade cost? $3, said the woman. Really? said Evan. That much? How big's the cup? The woman pulled out a plastic cup off of a stack and held it up. It wasn't much bigger than the 8-ounce cups that Evan had in his wagon. Wow, $3? That's a lot, said Evan. Well, thanks anyway. He started to walk to the door. Hey, said the woman, pointing to the ice cream case. I'm allowed to give you a taste for free. Really? said Evan. Then, could I taste the strawberry slam? The woman handed him a tiny plastic spoon with 3 licks worth of pink ice cream on it. Evan swallowed it in one gulp. Back outside, he got to work. First, he filled his pitchers with water from the drinking fountain. Then he stirred in the mix. Then he pulled out a blue marker and wrote on a piece of paper, $2 per cup, best price in town. He barely finished setting up when the customers started lining up, and they didn't stop. For a full hour, he poured lemonade. The world is a thirsty place, he thought, as he nearly emptied his fourth pitcher of the day. And I'm the lemonade king. Later, Evan would think of something his grandma might say. Pride goeth before a fall. Pride goeth before a fall. When Evan looked up, there was Officer Ken, his hands on his hips, looking down on him. Evan gulped. He stared at the large holster gun strapped to Officer Ken's belt. Hello, said Officer Ken, not smiling. Hi, said Evan. Officer Ken did the bike rodeo every year at Evan's school. He was also the cop who had shown up last fall when there was a herd goose on the recess field. Officer Ken was always smiling. Why wasn't he smiling now? Evan wondered. Do you have a permit? Asked Officer Ken. He had a very deep voice, even when he talked quietly like he did now. You mean like a bike permit? That's what the rodeo was all about. If they passed the rodeo, the third graders got their bike permits, which meant they weren't allowed to ride to school. Which meant they were allowed to ride to school if they got their bike permit. No, I mean a permit to sell food and beverages in a public place. You need to get a permit from the town hall and pay a fee for the privilege. Pay the town hall to run a lemonade stand? Was he kidding? Evan looked at Officer Ken's face. He didn't look like he was kidding. I didn't know I needed one, said Evan. Sorry, friend, said Officer Ken. I'm going to have to shut you down. It's the law. But, there are lemonade stands all over town, said Evan. He thought of Jesse and Megan's lemonade stand when he'd wheeled his wagon by more than an hour ago. Their stand had looked like a beehive with small children crowding around. He had read the sign over their stand. Free face painting, nail polishing, hair braiding. What a gimmick. But it's sure like it was working, you know, said Evan. There's a stand on Damon Road right now. You should go bust them. Officer Ken smiled. We tend to look at the other way when it's in a residential neighborhood, but right here on the town green, we have to enforce the law. Otherwise, we'd have someone selling something every 2 feet. But there had to be some way to convince Officer Ken. How could Evan make him understand? You see, I've got this little sister, and we've got a competition going on to see who can sell the most lemonade, and I've got to win. Because he couldn't explain the rest about 4th grade and how embarrassed he was in the same class as his kid sister and how it made him feel like a great big loser. Evan looked up at Officer Ken. Officer Ken looked down at Evan. It was like Officer Ken was wearing a mask. A no smiling, I'm not your buddy mask. Then Officer Ken shook his head and smiled, and the mask fell off. I've got a little sister too, he said. Love her to death now, but when we were kids, Officer Ken sucked his breath in and shook his head. Whew. Then the mask came back, and Officer Ken looked right at Evan for 10 very stern seconds. Tell you what, said Officer Ken, I do have to shut you down. The law is the law, but before I do, I'll buy 1 glass of lemonade. How's that sound? Evan's face fell. Sure, he said without enthusiasm. He poured the extra tall cup and gave it to the policeman. Officer Ken reached into his pocket and handed Evan a $5 bill. Keep the change, he said, a contribution to the Big Brother Fund. Now clean up your things and don't leave any litter behind. He lifted his cup in a toast as he walked away. Evan watched him go. Wow, he thought. I just sold the most expensive cup of lemonade in town. Evan stared at the $5 bill in his hand. It was funny. 2 days ago, he would have felt as rich as a king to have the money in his hand. It was enough to buy 2 slices of pizza and a soda with his friends. It was enough to run a video and a late-night snack for someone's house. It was enough to buy a whole bag full of his favorite candy mix at CVS. 2 days ago, he would have been jumping for joy. Now he looked at the $5 and thought, it's nothing. Compared to the $100 he needed to win the war, $5 was nothing. He felt somehow that he had been robbed of something, maybe the happiness he should have been feeling. He loaded everything from his stand and went into the wagon and made sure he didn't leave a scrap of litter behind. He still had a glass full of lemonade in each pitcher, not to mention another whole pitcher already mixed up and unsold, so he poured himself a full cup. Then before then before beginning the long, hot haul back to his house, he found an empty spot on a shaded bench and pulled his earnings out of his pocket. He counted once, he counted twice, very slowly. He had only made $65. The cups and lemonade mix had cost $9. When he added his earnings from yesterday and Thursday, he had $103.11. Now that's enough, he thought. This chapter 8 now. It's called Going Global, and global means throughout the world, refers to expanding one's market beyond the immediate area of the production. On Saturday morning, Jessie slept in, and even when she opened her eyes at 9:05, she still felt tired. How can I wake up tired? She wondered as she buried her face in her pillow and dozed off. 5 minutes later, she was awake for real, remembering why she was so tired. Yesterday's lemonade stand had been the hardest work of her life. Face painting, hair braiding, nail polishing. It had sounded like such a good idea. Jessie had been sure that every kid in the neighborhood would line up to buy a cup of lemonade. But that was the problem. Every kid had lined up for lemonade and then wanted face painting and her hair braided and fingernail polishing and toenail polishing. A boy had asked for face painting on both cheeks, both arms, and his stomach. One girl begged for lots of braids with ribbons woven in, and the nail polishing. They all wanted different colors and decals. It was impossible to get them to sit still long enough for the polish to dry. We're going to run out of lemonade, Megan had said to Jessie at noon, and the line stretched all the way to the street. Pour half cups instead of full ones, whispered Jessie. It has to last. Jessie and Megan had each made $24 on lemonade, but they worked 8 hours to do it, and at the end of the day they agreed. A good idea, but not worth it. After breakfast, Jessie pulled out her lockbox and sat on her bed. She kept the hidden box in her closet on a shelf under some sweaters. She kept the key in the plastic box in her desk drawer. The plastic box was disguised to look exactly like a pack of guns. You would never know it was hollow and had a secret sliding panel on the side. Jessie unlocked the box and opened the lid. First, she took out the 3 torn slips of paper. There was one for the added value and one for goodwill. There was also one new one that Jessie had added last night. It was called profit margin. Sales less of all operating costs divided by the number of sales. The result is a ratio. For example, if it costs you $300 to make 100 hats and you sell those hats for $500, the profit margin is 500 minus 3 divided by 100 equals 2 to 1. 2 divided by 1. Jessie lined up all 3 scraps of paper on her bed. She wasn't sure why she was saving these words, but she felt like they belonged in her lockbox. Next, she took out her lemonade earnings. Every day, Megan had squealed over how much money they'd made. But every day, Jessie had known, it's not enough. It's not going to be enough to win. Jessie counted the money. So far, she had earned $40. It was a lot of money, but it wasn't nearly enough. She still needed to earn $60 more. And today was Saturday, only 2 more selling days before she and Evan counted their earnings on Sunday night. How was she going to sell enough lemonade to earn $60 in 2 days? She couldn't. That was the problem. No kid could earn $100 in just 5 days by selling lemonade. The profit margin was too small. She knew because she used her calculator to figure it out last night. The number said it all. There was no way 2 girls in one neighborhood could sell 375 cups of lemonade. Nobody wanted that much lemonade, no matter how hot the day was. Jessie looked at the money in her lockbox and the page of calculations on her desk. Another kid would have quit, but Jessie wasn't a quitter. On good days, Jessie's mom called her persistence. On bad days, she told her she didn't know when enough was enough. Jessie reached for 10 bright ideas to light up your sales. It was on her bedside table, right next to Charlotte's web. Jessie's hand hovered. She looked longingly at Wilbur and Fern, watching Charlotte hanging by a thread. But this was war. She couldn't stop to read for fun. She grabbed her booklet and opened it to bright idea number 6. An hour later, she had a new scrap of paper stashed in her lockbox and a whole new page of calculations on her desk. It might work. It could work. But she and Megan had to risk everything they'd earned over the past 3 days. And Jessie would have to be braver than she had ever been in her whole life. Jessie carried her lockbox and calculations downstairs, and she went into the kitchen and pulled down the school directory, scanning names of all the 3rd graders from last year. And I'm going to have to stop until tomorrow. See you later.